Hey everyone, Ashley May and Mike Beer here with the Daily Racing Form. A little bit of a different flavor of a preview for this upcoming Saturday. It's not stateside, it's international racing. It's Saudi Cup Day overseas, and it's an early start for us in the U.S. First post is 7 a.m. They have a 9-race program, and it's international racing, Mike, but there are a couple of hopes for the U.S.
Yeah, we didn't get. I don't think we got the participation that maybe a lot of people were expecting earlier in the year. A bunch of horses seemed like they were going to go and then decided not to. But we do have a few talented runners shipping over.
And we'll look at one of the first races where we'll see some U.S. presence, specifically looking at the Grade 3 Saudi Derby. $1.5 million is the purse. The purse money all day long is ridiculous. It's insane amounts of money, and it's obviously attracted a couple of our runners. And when we look at this field specifically, our chance is in the form of the number 4 Golden State, who comes off a Jerome win. He's actually won his last 3 races. And curious to get your thoughts on this horse. He's an Iowa bred. He's obviously been spending most of his time in New York, but his win last time out, he was quite speedy and was able to take them gate to wire.
Listen, all of his races are good. I mean, and he's just getting better every time his trainer Chad Summers sends him out there. Speed is his calling card. He's gotten to the front in each of his last 3 starts. Those races were never really in doubt. And now he ships over to Saudi Arabia. And you know what? He gets to run in another 1-turn mile. Actually, this is what this horse likes to do. He gets another 1-turn mile, and I suspect we'll get speed out of him once again.
And his trainer is actually no stranger to shipping horses overseas many years ago. I shouldn't say that many. It seems like forever ago, but
Mhm.
Mind Your Biscuits did very well in Dubai. We'll move to another race on the program. The next one on their card is race number 4. It's the Riyadh's Dirt Sprint with the big name and the 6-5 morning line favorite being Straight No Chaser. And curious to get your thoughts. To me, he's been so well managed by my racehorse and trainer, Dan Blacker. They've been patient with him. And in my opinion, he's the US's best chance of a victory on Saturday.
Yeah, because he's just a real good horse. Now he's going to have to deal with the defending champion in this race, Remake, who won this race last year, was 3rd in it in 2023. So you know that he's a formidable rival. Straight No Chaser is really good though, and it's just one of those things. The unfortunate injury for him back in May of 2023, because he was just getting good and he seemed like he was on the cusp of, maybe even being the best American sprinter at that time. And unfortunately, he was sidelined, but he's come back with 2 really good performances at the end of last year.
I think the big thing about the Breeders' Cup Sprint specifically is I think a lot of folks expected him to be on the lead, and he was close to the action. He showed that he was comfortable having a horse or 2 in front of him, and just kind of watching some of the social media posts, Dan Blacker has talked about, he has early foot. He can be very quick out of the gate. Does he need to be on the lead? No, but they expect him obviously to be ready to roll in this event. As we talked about, he's 6-5 on the morning line. That's the dirt sprint. There's also the turf sprint as well. It comes a little bit later on their program. It's their 7th race. And interesting to see our hope in here, Howard Wolowitz, who's had some hype behind him in the past, and kind of looking at his recent form. How do you assess him against this group?
It's pretty tough. I mean, because this horse is coming from all over the place. Howard Wolowitz, though, first of all, thank God for Gold Square for sending over a couple of horses. Otherwise, you and I would really have nothing to talk about in these undercard races. Howard Wolowitz, he's pretty good. He's underrated. The losses on his card are races where he didn't get particularly good trips, and I think I would throw the Breeders' Cup into that. I'm not suggesting that he was going to win that race, but listen, he checked right out of contention on the turn of that race, wound up last, and he was actually running at the end. It was just way too late.
I'm kind of looking at this turf sprint. It's an interesting distance. It's about 6 3/4 furlongs. And I think kind of looking at his races, I actually don't mind him going further. I do think when you look at the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, the distance, 5 furlongs, is very different than it has been based on the host track's configuration. And I just think it's too short for him. I think he's shown, especially in that most recent outing, the Holiday Charmer at Turfway. Sure, maybe he didn't face the same caliber that he's going to face on Saturday overseas, but I do think he likes the added ground. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the distance, because it's a pretty big difference, from even 6 furlongs, but 5 and 6 furlong sprints. This is almost 7 furlongs, and anybody who spending time handicapping Belmont, where they run those 7 furlong turf sprints, they're way different than 5 and 6 furlong turf sprints. Howard Wolowitz, I feel like you already know he can handle this. Actually, they ran him at Kentucky Downs. Those 6.5 furlong races there, they play way longer. He handled it fine.
I think the good thing, you mentioned the Kentucky Downs, he came back and has won since then. We always kind of scratch our heads on what to do with the performances at Kentucky Downs. Can they replicate it? And last time out, he did get a career best 102 Beyer. Speed figure We'll round it out here with the main event. The final race on the card is the $20 million Saudi Cup. Mile and an eighth, a different configuration. Speaking of the situation, it's a one-turn mile and an eighth. And our chance in here is Rattle and Roll, who I think when you would maybe look at this, say, a couple of months ago, if they were aiming for the spot, you might have thought it was ambitious, but I actually thought his local performance and preparation for this was visually very impressive.
Yeah, his prep was really, really good. I'm glad that Kenny McPeak shipped him over to get him a run over the track. I think that could be important for him. I get that Rattle and Roll's, like not a superstar, and he's never been at the top of the handicap division over here. I'm his biggest fan. I love this horse. I think he's really, really good. I actually, they wanted to run him in the Breeders' Cup last year. He didn't get in. He was on the AE list. I was looking forward to betting him at the Breeders' Cup last year. So I have a lot of love for this horse, and it's not an easy spot for him, Ashley. I'm hoping that he runs really well.
Yeah, and I completely agree with everything you said. I think kind of looking at him early in his career, obviously high hopes. He was able to get a grade one victory early, but they've kept him racing. He's now 6 years old. And if there's any pace to run at, he should be able to fly late. I mean, he made a burst in the stretch last time out and obviously handled the configuration. I think, if you want to knock him, that's fine. But let's not forget, he's going to face some of the same rivals that he faced back on January 25th.
Beat a couple of these same horses in that prep race for sure. Those two horses, they don't seem like major players in here. I mean, he's going to take on some much better horses, but there were just so many questions surrounding, most of his main rivals in here, actually, just, horses that are a lot of them switching surfaces. Of course, you have the big name, one of the big names in the race anyway, who's just a world-class turf horse. Going to try turf or dirt here, Romantic Warrior. Who knows? If he handles it, he'll win. But, it's hard to want to take a short price on him. And you have Forever Young. We're very familiar with him. He's a really good horse, and he's probably the horse to beat.
Yeah, you mentioned Romantic Warrior, obviously an 18-time winner in his career, a 7-year-old son of Acclamation, who, look at his last 2 wins in Hong Kong and at Maidan, just has decimated his competition. He's been doing it for a long time. But you bring up the one, I guess, hole in his resume. He doesn't have a dirt race. And I don't know if his pedigree necessarily screams dirt when he's doing so well, but I think you have to understand why the connections would take a shot when there's $20 million on the line.
Exactly. If you're going to take a shot on dirt, we already know that he's, one of the best horses in the world on the grass. They have nothing further to prove there. Take a shot on dirt, you do it for $20 million.
And you mentioned the other big name in this field, the morning line favorite, Forever Young, who we have seen stateside a couple of times. And even though those didn't end up in wins, they were in the money finishes. His only 2 defeats, I think in both of them, he had a ton of trouble. And he's certainly stamped himself as a major player and just a very talented colt.
Yeah, in some ways, just because it's a dirt race, maybe he has the advantage over Romantic Warrior, and he's the horse to beat. Listen, I have no knocks. I have nothing bad to say about him. I will say, maybe a little tired of him, just because I've been hearing for, I don't know, a year plus now that he's, way better than the American horses and blah, blah, blah. I don't necessarily think I've seen that on the track, but he's obviously really good.
And he's actually going to cut back in distance from a couple of tries at 1.25 miles and then 3 starts back at 1 mile and 3/16, or should say 4 starts back at 1 mile and 3/16. So 9 races on tap at King Abdulaziz in Saudi Arabia. $20 million is the big one. We'll be rooting for the American horses. And we wish you the best of luck if you're gambling this weekend.